In the previous lesson, we learned how to play the dominant 7th chord type in 5 positions across the neck. The focus of the final lesson in this series on the cage system for guitar will focus on the final chord type, minor 7th chords. In this lesson, I will show you how to play a minor 7th chord in 5 positions using the cage system for guitar. This will give your minor chords much more of a jazzy quality. Every example in this lesson will be played in the key of G. However, once you've learnt each shape, it's very easy to shift each chord to any key by simply starting on a different root note. Let's start with position 1 of G minor 7, which will use our E shape. As a minor 7th chord is built from the root, flat 3rd, 5th and flat 7th degrees of the major scale, a common way of arranging this in position 1 is to play the root note on the low E string, followed by the 7th on the D string, the 3rd on the G string, and the 5th on the B string, and then simply lower the 3rd and 7th by 1 semitone or fret, revealing the minor 3rd and minor 7th. Now you might be tempted to play this chord using all 4 fingers, like this, but a much more common and useful way of approaching this shape is to fret the root note, which in this case is a G, with your 2nd finger, and bar the remaining notes with your 3rd finger, giving us this very easy to play G minor 7 chord, which would sound like this. Next, we will be learning position 2 of G minor 7, which will use our D shape. To visualize this chord, begin by placing down the G root note on the D string, using your 1st finger, followed by your 2nd finger on the B string 6th fret, your 3rd finger on the high E string 6th fret, and finally your 4th finger on the G string 7th fret. This would give us position 2 of G minor 7, which would sound like this. Next up is position 3 of G minor 7, which will be using our C shape. To visualize this chord, start by placing down the G root note on the A string 10th fret, using your 3rd finger, followed by your 4th finger on the G string 10th fret, and finally a bar across the D, G and B strings, using your 1st finger. And be careful not to bar the high E string, as we don't want to include this note in our chord. This would give us position 3 of G minor 7, which would sound like this. Be sure to give this video a like or comment below if you're enjoying this lesson and wish to see future content. But let's move on. Next up is position 4 of G minor 7, which will be using our A shape. This one should be very familiar to you, as it's similar to a standard minor bar chord starting from the A string root note. To visualize and play this shape, start by finding the G root note on the A string. This is the same root note used for our position 3 chord shape, and place a bar down using our 1st finger. From here, place your 3rd finger on the D string 12th fret, and your 2nd finger on the B string 11th fret. Or you could simply see this as a 5-string minor bar chord shape without the 4th finger. This would give us position 4 of G minor 7, which would sound like this. And finally, position 5 of G minor 7, which will use our G shape. In order to play this shape, you first need to visualize a G root note on the low E string. However, we won't actually be playing this note. Instead, we will use this more as a reference note to know where to place the remaining notes of the chord. From the root note, you need to jump to the A string and then find the note that is 2 frets or semitones down. Play this note with your 2nd finger, followed by the 1st finger on the G string 12th fret, 3rd finger on the high E string 13th fret, and your 4th finger on the B string 15th fret, which would sound like this. This shape can be a struggle for many guitarists and isn't used too often, so don't worry about spending too much time on this one, but I would still recommend trying it out, as you never know when it might come in handy in the future. You should play all these chords in sequence to become fully acquainted with each position, and then start the whole sequence from a different starting note, like A for instance, to get used to playing these shapes in different keys. As usual, feel free to like, subscribe and ring the notification bell for all future lessons. See you in the next one.